All right, good afternoon, parents and guardians. Thank you again for taking time out of your schedules to join us. We recognize that these are very challenging times, and on behalf of our Board of Education, our senior executives, we just want to say thank you so much for your continuation in providing comments, sharing your concerns, and asking questions. We will continue to allow for families to send in comments and questions. As you know, we've had several forums to hear from families and to allow for questions to come forward. And we just want to make sure we're being responsive. We've gotten a lot of questions and we're doing our very best to respond to them. And part of what we'll be doing over the next 2 days is developing an updated FAQ. So that way we continue to incorporate many of the questions that are being asked. So I'll just ask that you be on the lookout. We're going to try our best by tomorrow evening to put out an updated FAQ that can be found on the district's website. So I would like to start by identifying some key oversights and updates as, again, based on the questions that have been coming in. And so I want to direct you to find key updates and materials on the district's website under Operation Reopen. We continue to update every day and every week, and that's where you can find the latest information. I provide updates at every Board of Education meeting, as well as other presentations and key information that we receive, whether that be from the CDC or the Department of Health and the New York State Department of Education. One of the interesting requests that we've been getting, and this has been by way of parents and guardians who have been either emailing me directly or individuals on my team, there have been new requests coming in, a little more than normal, to homeschool children. And so we just want to provide a little clarity, and we don't want to make assumptions that parents don't know the difference between homeschooling and fully remote. But nevertheless, we also want to provide clarity in the event a parent or guardian may be confused. So I'm going to ask Ms. McDowell if you can please share. We just created a one-page T-chart to just highlight the differences between homeschooling and remote learning. And again, this is in the event a parent or guardian may be requesting remote, but indicating homeschooling. And then, yes, we understand there are parents and guardians who are requesting homeschooling and they know it's homeschooling. But here you can see where the responsibility lies in the request. And in the event that a parent or guardian intended to request for remote learning but indicated homeschooling, we will work with you to make that particular change. So let's identify just some key differences. So in this case, when a parent is homeschooling, the parent is the lead educator, is the one required for delivering instruction, required to meet state standards and ensure that there is curricula in place that the child is engaged in. The parent and guardian is fully responsible for the socialization of their children, completely responsible for assessments and reporting. Whereas remote, as that is now a new model for the district is responsible for the curriculum and the delivery of the content. We're also responsible for how students engage, whether that's in person, after school, in clubs, in athletics, etc. And then the district is also responsible for the assessments and testing. Now, we've had many families every year who homeschool their children, and they understand the components of homeschooling, as well as the various assessments and what standards need to be addressed. And they submit paperwork to the district to show evidence of whether or not the child is meeting the standards and evidence of the assessments. So we just wanted to take just a few minutes to ensure the key differences between the two. And in the event a parent or guardian requested homeschooling but meant to identify remote learning, again, please reach out to us. We will make the correction and ensure that your child is enrolled in the remote program. As such, we've also been getting a lot of emails regarding whether or not there's still an opportunity to request remote because perhaps the parent or guardian missed the August 10th deadline. We are going to open the survey back up to allow for families to make the additional requests through this Sunday at midnight. At that point, we are going to cut it off because, as you can imagine, there is a lot of back-end planning that we're responsible for to ensure your child is in a program and or ready to go on the first day of instruction, which is the next point that I want to make. We will be bringing to the Board of Education this upcoming Tuesday a recommendation to change the school calendar. As of today, the first day of instruction for students is September 2nd. We are going to request that the first day of instruction for students be September 8th. So that is a pending request that we are going to bring to the Board of Education on Tuesday. If they support that request, we will certainly get information out to families to let you all know that the first day of school has been moved from September 2nd to September 8th. So again, we're going to open up the opt-out survey through this upcoming Sunday with midnight being the cutoff. I want to direct you and ask you to continue accessing our website where you will find the latest information regarding opening schools. And then again, if you intended to request remote learning, but identified homeschooling, we're just going to ask that you reach out to your child's school or even myself or anyone at central office, and we will support you in making the change so that way your child is in fact enrolled in a school program that is fully remote, which means they'll be home, but they'll be getting instruction from their teacher with curriculum that the district will provide. The way we're going to frame out the rest of our hour today is we're going to provide you some critical updates as it relates to teaching and learning remotely and in person. And we have our assistant superintendents, Ms. Moriarty and Mr. Baer, who will provide those updates in just a minute. We're also going to provide updates for testing and contact tracing. Once they're done, and depending on how much time is left, we'll also provide responses to the various questions that you submitted that I have right here in front of me. So with that, I'm going to ask our curriculum and instruction team if you will go ahead and provide our families with essential updates regarding teaching and learning.
Thank you, Dr. Padilla. Good afternoon, everybody. So we have a remote learning update for you. Amanda, if you could just make that a little bit bigger, that would be great. Thank you. Our first section starts out updating about Chromebooks and devices. So we are having a distribution today for second and third graders. We do plan to have a distribution beginning hopefully no later than the middle of September for our pre-K and our kindergarten students and our first grade students. We have been updated regularly by Dell. We do have a little delay in our order, but they are coming very, very soon. So every student will have a device pre-K through grade 12, hopefully sooner than later. Once your child receives their Chromebook, they will be using Google Classroom, and our primary students pre-K through second grade will also have an option to use a platform called Seesaw. There will be resources posted online and videos for parents that have questions about how to use these tools and how to access the Google Classroom, where students will have access to synchronous, which will be live teaching, and asynchronous, which will be lessons posted in the classroom that students are required to complete. Next page, please.
So, Ms. Moriarty, I am on. I apologize. I was having technical difficulties with my computer. This is Chris Bayer. I'm the Assistant Superintendent. And as we go through this document, we just want to point out some highlights to it. So on this page, you will notice that it includes information on the daily schedule and routine. Again, as Ms. Moriarty said, the platforms will be Google Classroom or Seesaw, and students are expected to sign in by 9 a.m. during the remote period, which starts hopefully by September 8th in that phase 1 component. When they come in, at that point, teachers will be teaching a synchronous lesson, and we're working with the teachers how to provide mini lessons throughout the day, so that way we can intersperse time where they directly see the teachers, as well as time to complete the work. We recognize that dual importance of having contact time, especially as students are going to be introduced to new teachers this September. But we also recognize that having children on computers all day long, looking at adults and classmates, is just not really developmentally appropriate. So the intention is you sign in at 9 o'clock. You will be met by your teacher. She'll check in, or he'll check in with you, make sure everyone's okay, take attendance, and then teach a mini lesson. At the secondary level, it will be a mini lesson for each period that a student has a course in their schedule. And again, they're meant to be short and then offer opportunities to work asynchronously or on their own, completing the activities. We've included in the document just information around communication. We know from the spring how important it was for families to communicate with us and for us to communicate with families. So we want to make sure that any issues you have with regard to signing in, how the Chromebook is working, do you have the right password, how do I talk to my teacher, to really use the Gmail system, but also contact the buildings if and when you have issues. We have included a link in this document that will take you to the page where all the buildings are listed, as well as the phone numbers and the administrators who oversee that building. It is our intention to also include emails in the next couple of days in that document. So that document actually lives here, and when you click on that blue area, it will take you to the bottom of the page. The big difference in this document is the way in which we are required now to take attendance. Back in the spring, as part of an executive order, the daily taking of attendance by teachers was suspended. When in the reopening plan from the State Education Department, they made it clear that we are required to take daily attendance for students. So we have been working on the most effective way to do that. So certainly it is the expectation of the Newburgh community that all students sign in at 9 o'clock. And again, attendance will be taken at that time. And again, secondary, as I said, every period that they have, they'll have to sign each time. But we do recognize that sometimes children are not able to get on the computer and log in at the time at which those activities are scheduled. So we are offering for those times that students watch a video. We're going to have teachers use a product called Screencastify, which will allow them to videotape themselves, post that videotape of their mini lesson on the Google Classroom, and then have students watch it when they are able to do so. Attendance in that particular way would include watching the video and then filling out the activity that corresponds to that video. And all of that must be done by 11:59 that evening in order for the student to have been counted as attending for that day. We will also make sure the video has to be watched. There will be ways in which students will have to answer questions relative to what they saw in the video that they wouldn't be able to answer simply by the activity sheet. So we really feel that it's important that students watch and fill out. And I do want to reiterate, while we're offering this second solution because we understand the challenges some families face, we really think it's very important for families to log in synchronously as much as they can and participate in the class with their teachers and their classmates, especially as this is a new year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bayer. Digital etiquette is very important. So this is how do students, how does everybody behave in a digital learning experience. So students will be expected to maintain appropriate behavior, not taking pictures of what's happening online or making videos, and to be polite and conduct themselves as they would just the expectations for learning would be just in school. We have linked here our technology acceptable use policy and our student code of conduct in English and Spanish, so that families can review that and discuss with their children what the expectations are while they're online. As we spoke about earlier, what are the resources? There are many tools and resources and software that will be used in instructing students online. So we've put together a resource guide. You can see under the software resource live document. You can click there. It'll take you to a page that lists the resources, what they're used for, and how to use them. Again, there's also a link to a help desk that will take you to the building ITF, our instructional technology support for each building. So if you have questions just about the technology, you can email the ITF assigned to your child's school building. It's really very important also for us to keep in mind equity. So for all students, how do they access learning and what kind of learning is provided to them? So it is our commitment to all students to provide them with a rigorous learning opportunity. And so at the secondary level, that will ensure that students have access to advanced placement classes, early college classes, P-TECH, and the CTE program. Additionally, we'll provide the hotspots, the Chromebooks, and support families in the use of technology. In the event that a family, for whatever reason, cannot use the technology or it's not working or they can't access it, we will provide learning packets to students. We'll make sure that we can get them to the closest food distribution site to where you live, and we'll provide the work that way and make a plan on how you can turn the work back in. We'll use your school administrators to help us set that process up. So in the event that you can't access the learning through technology, please contact the building administrator and we'll work on a plan to provide you with a learning packet. We also know that terms that we use regularly, synchronous, asynchronous, digital etiquette for learning, hybrid, these are all terms that we use on a daily basis, but they may not be commonly used to you at this time. So we've created a link in a glossary to what those terms mean so that you can become familiar with them as well. This is the building contact information. So as Mr. Bayer had indicated previously, each school building is listed with the principals, the assistant principals, the addresses, and their contact information. We will be updating it to provide email addresses. And there's the school ITF. So if you have questions just about technology, you can access it there. And then we move right into the glossary of commonly used terms. That concludes our portion today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to testing. So if we can put that up for families.
Thank you, Dr. Padilla. This is Ed Forget, Deputy Superintendent. When we talk about testing, it's specifically related to the COVID-19 testing, and what our role will be to address testing will be kind of brokering support and helping parents and families to connect with local sites for testing. So each day when a student arrives at school, they will have a health check. Every day their temperature will be checked. And in the event they have a temperature upon arrival to school, the parent or guardian will be contacted and the nurse will engage in a conversation with the family. The student will be picked up and we will encourage you to see your healthcare provider. And in conversation between you as the parent and the healthcare provider, the decision to either test or not test would be determined between you and your healthcare provider. We know that it's a little hectic at this time, so we have worked with our medical director for the district. His name is Dr. Thomas. And Dr. Thomas will be working with the local testing sites in the community to ensure that you are able to secure a site that can do the test in a timely manner. We currently have one testing site in New Windsor that is willing to kind of expedite to the greatest extent possible testing for our students at this time. If in the event your child does become ill throughout the day and we start to see symptoms and signs that something may be an issue, your child will be brought to the health office and we will hold your child there. We will isolate them from others if we have enough evidence to say that that's necessitated. And then we will speak with you about what are the next steps for the possibility of having your child tested. We just want to be clear that the Newburgh School District will not be actually testing students for COVID in the district. Our role will be to work with you and our medical director to secure testing at an outside location. And we are here to assist you with that, to guide you with that, but we will not be doing the actual testing in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forget. Can we put up the contact tracing, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pedro Roman. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Equity and Access. And this section relates to contact tracing. Contact tracing is basically the process of contacting any individual or all individuals who have had contact with someone who has been tested positive for COVID-19. And so our responsibility as a district is really to ensure that we cooperate and follow all state and local health department guidelines and requirements regarding the contact tracing, isolation, and any quarantine efforts. As a result, our school leaders will be working with them hand in hand to ensure that there are accurate attendance records of students and staff and visitors that enter the building, ensuring that all student schedules are up to date, ensuring that once again logs of visitors are documented, date, time, where in the building individuals are traveling. This is going to be all critical information that is needed to ensure that we're able to trace where individuals are in the event that someone is tested positive, so that we can provide that information to the Department of Health. Currently, our district, our Board of Education, during the last board meeting, approved for the purchase of a platform. It's called Qualtrics, which will automate and streamline the contact tracing process. It really allows us the ability to do two things. Number one, it really allows us to keep track of individuals that are going through the health screening process, which involves a questionnaire that's completed. So our staff members in the building will be completing that on a daily basis. And our families and students will have to be completing that periodically, and we'll be sure to share what that means in terms of frequency with families. And then secondly, in the event that someone does test positive, the system will also create heat maps, which will allow us to really identify locations and zones in the building where individuals may have visited or have been in contact with individuals. Once again, that's all in efforts to provide the Department of Health the necessary information in the event someone does test positive for COVID-19. Throughout this entire process, it's our responsibility to maintain confidentiality as required by federal and state regulations in terms of the privacy of disclosure of any COVID-19 individual or individuals that are tested positive for COVID-19. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Roman. So at this time, what I'm going to do is, again, we received your questions that were sent in. So thank you for assisting us with that. And we're going to take the next half hour and we're going to start answering the questions that you asked. As you can imagine, we received several hundred questions and don't have time to answer all of them. However, what we are going to do, it's our intent to provide an updated FAQ that we are hoping to release tomorrow evening. But we will make every attempt now to answer as many questions as possible. And I'm going to start with teaching and learning. I want to emphasize a couple of things that our assistant superintendents indicated as it relates to teaching and learning. But first, Dr. Roman touched on contact tracing and the district's responsibility in collaborating with the Department of Health. So at this point, what we know to be true, based on the guidance and the many meetings that we've had, is that if someone tests positive, the Department of Health will call the district and let us know where in the district this person attends and or works. They will not provide us identifiable information. So they will not say Joe Smith tested positive and he has been in contact with these various people. There are regulations and laws that prevent the Department of Health from identifying such people. But this is where we need everyone's help. In the event a child or an adult tests positive, we do have a phone number and an email address that is on the website whereby someone could call and inform us of that. So we're asking people to come forward and give us the necessary information so that way we can do our part in collaborating with the Department of Health and clean classrooms, wings, and schools, and work with the Department of Health to close schools if that's what's needed. So I just wanted to emphasize that point again. And it was several of your questions. You wanted to know how to go about calling if someone is not in compliance, which I appreciate because, again, this is about making sure everyone is safe. So to the many families and guardians that asked that particular question, again, I want to direct you to the district website. The family guidebook has important contact numbers that you have access to throughout the entire county, but very specifically to our school district, we have contact people ready and set up in the event someone is not in compliance. It is the expectation and mandatory requirement at this point that every child and adult practices social distancing and wears a mask every day. It is also a requirement that upon entering any school facility that temperatures will be taken. And again, this is for adults and children. The adults will have to complete a questionnaire daily in addition to having their temperature taken, and students will periodically have to complete a questionnaire as well. But this is about a partnership. This is about us collaborating. So we're asking you to do your part at home. If your child has a fever, they should not show up to school. So we need you to take your child's temperature when they're leaving the house. We will take their temperature again when they're entering the building. There was a question related to what happens if a child has a fever so when we're taking their temperature as they're coming in and they demonstrate 100-degree fever or higher, excuse me, they will be put in a isolation room and you will be contacted where they will need to be picked up. If a child doesn't have a fever upon entering the building, but starts to show symptoms at some point throughout the day, they will be put in an isolation room and you will be contacted so that way they can be picked up. I have a question here regarding Will children have to wear a mask in their classrooms, even if their desks are 6 feet apart? And the answer is yes. This is social distancing and PPE. Again, the question, will there be a way to report individuals who are not complying, i.e. wearing a mask, not practicing social distancing? And again, the answer is yes. That contact information is in the family guidebook and on the website. I'm going to come back to the health and safety questions and want to start with the teaching and learning. So both assistant superintendents emphasize some key updates, such as attendance. We are expecting students at every grade level to be on time for when the teacher is providing synchronous instruction. And being present means having your camera on the way our cameras are on right now. So you can see us, the teacher can take attendance and acknowledge that in fact the student is there ready to do the necessary work. However, we are aware, based on much feedback that was provided from families, that in many cases it's really hard, especially if a parent is at work and they have a first grader or second grader, that it's really difficult for the child to independently do all of this on their own. And this is why we're asking our teachers to record their lessons and upload that video to Google Classroom, so that way, when you have the time to work with your child later in the evening, perhaps when you get off of work, that information is there for you, so that way both you and your child can work through the necessary assignment. And we're also going to count that as attendance. I have a question here regarding, do pre-K students receive a Chromebook? The answer to that is yes. I also just want to let you know, just because we were being proactive way back in May, we put an order in for pre-K, K, and 1. Unfortunately, we were notified that our August delivery date is suspended until September. As you can imagine, all across the world, everyone's ordering laptops. But because we were more proactive than other districts, you know, there are districts that now have to wait until December for their order. We're at this point having to wait till early to mid-September in order to get our additional delivery. And again, that was because we were proactive in the spring. I have a question here regarding, will scholars be required to bring in Chromebooks on hybrid days? And the answer to that is yes. Please make sure that your child wipes the Chromebook down when they bring that equipment in with them. Who do I contact if my family doesn't have internet access at home? And that's a good question. We need to make sure you do have internet access, and we do have available hotspots for families that need them. In the event you need internet access at home, please contact your child's school and or our communications team. And we will set up a delivery so that way you have that particular access. Can there please be an email, phone number to call for technical problems like Mojo Help Desk for parents and students? Absolutely, we will make contact information available to you. Again, most of that is already listed in the family guidebook that is currently online. So we absolutely want to encourage you to reach out to us if you need assistance. I have some more questions here. Will students be allowed to play sports? At this point, I can't answer that question. We're still waiting to get guidance from New York State Department of Education. As of now, what we do know is that the fall season has been pushed back to the end of September. And we're closely watching to see if the fall season has been canceled or if students will be allowed to practice and or compete. We do know that if they are allowed to compete, it's going to be a shortened season. There will not be regional or state championships. So that is to be continued. As soon as we get an update, we will let families know. I have a question here regarding, will all AP courses be available? At this point, it is our intent to offer all of the AP courses that we do have available. And Ms. Moriarty touched on this earlier. We are a district that in our core believes in removing barriers to equity and access. And this is also a requirement from the state education department. So if your child wants access to an AP course, please let your child's administration know. This is access for all. And I just want to be very, very clear about that. If your child wants access to an AP course, please let your child's guidance counselor, let your child's administrator know, so that way that can be programmed at some point this year if it can't for the fall. But we want to encourage students to take the most rigorous courses that we have to offer. There are no qualifications required to get into an AP course. So again, I want to be very clear about that. This is about removing barriers to access, and that is a requirement of every district in New York State. For students with an IEP who receive speech in school, how will this be done going forward? So can I ask Mr. Baer or Dr. Roman to answer that question, please?
Sure, I'll answer it if that's okay. So families that had speech during the remote learning in the spring understood that it was difficult for us to be able to put into place what was referred to as teletherapy. We worked directly with families. We did our best to try to provide opportunities to reinforce skills, but teletherapy in a remote world is very different. And one of the challenges we face is that a large majority of our services are in a group session. And because of privacy issues, we cannot bring 3 students into a teletherapy session and maintain privacy. That being said, we recognize that we need to be able to provide more of that during the remote part, at least, the ability to have students receive through a computer some form of connection with a speech therapist. So we are working right now. There's actually training that's involved for that. So all of our related services folks will be going through training in early September with the intention of us to be able to provide some form of teletherapy by the middle of September. Certainly, if we get to a hybrid model, it is our intention also to use the Wednesday to maybe provide some additional services to kids in a more in-person arrangement, if and when that is in place.
Thank you, Mr. Baer. I have another IEP question. Will students with an IEP be attending in class more than general education students?
When we get to the hybrid model, if you've been tracking what the state and our district has said, we're looking to create different cohorts of students. So if you're a class of 24, we would have to break that down to be no more than 12 per each cohort. And Dr. Padilla has explained that very well. Being that our small classes, and I'm talking about our self-contained programs, 1211, 1212, and 812 classrooms, are already their own cohort, we have made the recommendation that if and when we do go hybrid, that we would really seriously consider bringing our special class students in 4 days a week, the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of that model that has been described.
Okay, thank you. There's several questions here regarding the first day of school. So if you are, if you're just joining us, I did highlight that in the very beginning of this. As of today, the first day of school is September 2nd. However, we are bringing to the Board of Education recommendation to change the first day of school for students to Tuesday, September 8th. So that decision will be made at our upcoming board meeting this upcoming Tuesday. So it's our hope that the first day of instruction will be Tuesday, September 8th. I have a question here. What if the child is having difficulty with the subject and I'm unable to help him with it due to not having much knowledge myself? What can I do for help? So Ms. Moriarty and Mr. Baer, can you share with families how they could go about getting support for families who are going to be sitting down with their children and working through assignments?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So as I indicated previously, there'll be many resources available on our district website with links to videos and tutorials that will not only show you how to use the tools, but also explain some of the learning that goes with it. Additionally, please feel free to email your child's teacher, email the building administrator, reach out to curriculum and instruction so that we can identify exactly what the struggle is and how we can help support you. We'll be happy to do that. There'll be many, many resources available online as well.
And just to piggyback on that for Ms. Moriarty, we are maintaining for teachers an 8 to 9 o'clock virtual office hour experience, so that if parents do reach out and say, I'm struggling with helping my child on a particular concept, teachers will be available throughout the week to be able to help support that. And it could be a quick little synchronous, coming in with you and your child with the teacher, just so they can explain to you. So we're looking at ways in order for that to occur.
Thank you. Let me just emphasize that again. We are going to be putting out videos to help families with the many things that we're doing. Teachers' daily start time for the month of September is 8 o'clock. Students' start time is 9 o'clock. And that is also, I have several questions regarding that. I have a question regarding when will we receive the schedule for hybrid learning? Our administrators are diligently working on schedules. I wanted to share with you a quick data update, and that is based on the survey that was completed on August 10th, 4,400 students have opted for 100% remote learning. So that requires our administrators to now go in and create a virtual program in addition to an in-person program. And they're working on that now, and they will provide updates and critical information to you, so that way your child has his or her schedule prior to the start of school. So I'm just asking that you continue to be flexible and supportive. Our administrators are having to adapt based on this new information that came forward when we put out the survey. So just hang tight, and you'll be getting that information shortly. Several questions about the start time. I answered that one. Here's a really good question. Will our teacher assignment change if we choose 100% virtual? Yeah, and that's a really good question, and one that I can't answer just yet. It's our hope that for students, who chose 100% remote, that we're able to put together staffing that can support 100% remote. And then obviously we have a separate program for in-person learning. So that is to be determined. Once we're able to work through the programming and the necessary adjustments, we'll be able to answer that particular question, a very important question, at a later date. Okay.
Dr. Padilla, if I could just add to that real quickly, there are some questions about ensuring that their child's teacher has taught that grade level and is familiar with the curriculum and the standards. And I can confirm that, yes, that will be our responsibility to ensure that the teachers teaching that grade level or that content area are certified and familiar with the standards and the curriculum that they're delivering.
Thank you for that. Okay, so again, before I transition to health and wellness, I want to just emphasize the importance that attendance will be taken every single day. I'm only emphasizing that again because in the spring, that wasn't the case. All right. Attendance will be taken every day. That is an accountability. So please, support your teachers and your administrators in ensuring that your child is ready to go at 9 o'clock for synchronous instruction. Our teachers will be providing synchronous instruction every single day. So you will see them. For attendance purposes, your child needs to be ready at 9 o'clock. And if your child is in middle school or in high school, they will get period by period attendance, which means they have to be ready to go at the time of that particular class with their camera on. And they will receive live instruction from their teacher. And the teacher will make decisions as to what parts of it is independent, what parts of it is not. The teacher will have small group instruction. The teacher will work one-on-one during various parts of that particular lesson. again, that will be a decision the teacher makes. So let's go ahead and jump into some health and safety as well as other facilities. So I do have some food service questions. So Ms. Lazarski, I did see you, so I'll allow you to answer these questions. What is lunch going to look like in all of the buildings?
Hi, everyone. So lunch in the buildings will be in the classroom. We will have multiple options for the students, a hot option, a cold option, a sandwich option, but we are making sure that we're not bringing any peanuts or not containing foods into the classrooms. So, if your child has an allergy, that is something that you don't have to worry about from the cafeteria. Meals will still be provided at no cost to all students attending our school buildings. And if you have opted for 100% virtual, or you have a hybrid schedule, or your student is not in the phase that we're currently in, you will have the opportunity to pick up meals. And this for this session, we are going to have that coincide with the Wednesday day where there's no students actually physically in the buildings. And we will be providing 5 days worth of meals at a time at multiple locations throughout the district with different time frames so that it's conducive to you coming to pick up where it doesn't conflict with student schedules.
Thank you. I have a few more food service questions. The next one is, will food be distributed to children who opted to be online only until January?
Yes, so those meals will be able to be picked up for 100% opt-out virtual, or students who are not phased in at the time of school starting.
Okay, thank you. Will all students get lunches at school, or do they take them from home?
We are encouraging everyone to participate in the meal programs. We are, we're hoping that we can continue to feed as many students as possible every day. Breakfast and lunch, both will be delivered to the classrooms at no cost, again, to the families, any families in the district. Additionally, those meals that would be picked up for the 100% virtual students are available at no cost to all families.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, if you have more food service questions, we have the best team in New York State. And although our breakfast program is ranked 3rd, we're really number 1. So we are here to serve you. These phenomenal leaders have gone above and beyond, and will continue to do so because it's in their heart. It's not about the job. It's about doing the right thing. So please, if you have other questions, don't hesitate. We will provide you responses. I'm going to touch on safety and security. So there's a question here regarding, with social distancing guidelines, how will emergency drills be handled? And that is a very important question, because first and foremost, we have to make sure that everyone is safe. But we are mandated to continue to practice emergency drills. So we will practice fire drills. Traditionally, the alarm went off. Everyone went in single file lines to a particular location outside the building, and they did that quickly and quietly. Moving forward, especially during the time of this pandemic, we will continue to practice the fire drills. However, it won't be everyone going into the hallway and outside at once. So we will be staggering classrooms, because it's about ensuring that classrooms have the opportunity to practice how to quickly and quietly get outside in order to be safe. And that will still continue. The big difference, however, is that the whole building won't be released outside at the same time because of social distancing. Equally for shelter in, that will be handled a little differently for the upcoming school year. It won't be safe at this point to put, I'm not going to go into great detail on how we practice other drills, because some of this is about how people do it internally and not sharing externally the various things that we do to keep children safe for obvious reasons, right? We don't want perpetrators to know how we keep adults and children safe in buildings. But we will be showing videos. We will be identifying the key practices that once we are far removed from this pandemic, that we can get right back into particular routines and protocols. So there's a question here. It's under facilities, but it says, is the staff going to be tested regularly for COVID? Mr. Forget, do you want to answer that?
Yes, at this time, the district will not be requiring testing for any individual staff. Staff and faculty, if they decide to do that, that's up to them. And again, due to privacy issues, they can let us know that they did it and share with us that documentation, but they're not mandated to do that. So at this time, the district has no requirement for testing of any faculty or staff member.
So the key word there is mandated. So we cannot mandate someone to be tested. If that changes and we have the authority to mandate, then we will, where we think it's appropriate. We will encourage, we will strongly recommend, certainly if someone has a fever, if someone is symptomatic, then we will guide, recommend, strongly suggest that they be tested. But in terms of mandating anyone, that is not something we can do. So here's a question regarding health and wellness. Will children have to wear a mask in their classroom, even if their desks are 6 feet apart? I think I answered this one already. So it's yes, it's not an or question. So yes, they have to be 6 feet apart and they have to wear masks.
And Dr. Badea, we will have a policy on that. So we want to make sure that the parents and our faculty and staff are aware that a policy will be created that clearly defines those expectations.
Okay. Will the students be required to have a COVID test prior to the start of school, Mr. Forget?
No, as I said earlier, they will not be mandated. In the event a student comes to school, has a fever, there will be that conversation with the nurse and the student, and then the parent or guardian will be contacted, and there will be a recommendation for the parent or guardian to take the student to their healthcare provider, and we will assist any parent or guardian that needs assistance with securing a healthcare provider. But no, there will be no mandate for them to be tested.
Thank you. If we opted to have our children do the hybrid model, but start to feel uncomfortable about that choice, would we then be able to switch our student to full remote learning? And I appreciate the question. And this is why we are being sticklers about the commitment here, because of the massive programming that has to take place. But we understand 100% for any child, any family who feels uncomfortable. Yes, that will be a discussion that will need to take place with the child's principal. And we would ask that you share why you feel uncomfortable. But I would say, conversely, for a family member who starts remote and then wants to go in person because they feel comfortable, again, that is a conversation that needs to take place with the principal. But what's important here is sticking with the decision. Because of the massive programming that needs to take place, we're asking that, to the extent possible, that these commitments be honored through January. All right. So if you're someone who's 100% remote, but then decides that you're comfortable with in person, we're going to ask that you make that switch in January, where we can prepare and plan. And conversely, if your child's in the opposite program, that you allow it to go till January. However, if you feel that the in-person is not meeting the needs and you're frightened, then obviously we can have that conversation and figure out when a potential start date could be. The next question is, if COVID numbers stay low, will children be transitioned back to full 5 days in-person learning? And that's the ultimate goal. I mean, we want to see our scholars. We want to see them every day. Our teachers want to see them every day, but we have to do it in a safe way. And right now, starting remote for September is the safest way we think for children that we can manage this. But it is our hope to transition students back to instruction 5 days a week. But it's going to be a process. It's going to be phased in. And when we can have children back 5 days, we will. Okay. Let me answer some transportation questions. So there's a question here regarding, where will the students who are driven by parents be dropped off? And principals will be communicating that to you. There are designated locations whereby parents can only drop off their children. What are the protocols if the child does not maintain a face mask while on the bus? I'm going to add to that question and say, what are the protocols and consequences if a child does not maintain a face mask while on the bus and or while in school? Ms. Coyne, do you want to start with that? And then I'll finish it.
Absolutely. If a student does not wear a mask on the bus, a bus conduct will be created as appropriate. And just like any other act of insubordination on the bus, if they're refusing to wear it, then there has to be consequences. A bus conduct will be generated and sent to the school, to the administrator of the school.
Yeah, and I'll just add to the second part. Students are required to wear a face mask on the bus and while in school at all times. If your child needs a mask upon entering the bus, one will be made available to him and her. And if a child needs a mask while they're in school, one will be made available to him or her. In the event a child refuses to wear the mask, we will follow the code of conduct and treat that as a form of insubordination. But I want to be clear about a few things. So this is in the event a child refuses to wear a mask, then there will be consequences. If a child needs a break from wearing the mask, then we're asking that that child communicate with his or her teacher. Based on the guidance by the Department of Health and by the New York State Department of Education, it is appropriate to have a mask break. All right, so we just need children to communicate with their teachers when the mask might be uncomfortable or when they need to just take it off for a short time. This isn't take it off and keep it off for the rest of the day. This is to take it off, readjust the mask, potentially get a new one if it's dirty, if it's broken. It's for, those breaks will be provided for those reasons. All right, so if a child needs a break, simply communicate it to the teacher and the teacher will allow it to happen. But it has to go back on. And any child who refuses to put the mask on and keep it on, then we will administer consequences for that, which could result in the child not being able to do in-person instruction. There's another question in here about our child gets transported to a school district outside of the district. Will you be providing transportation?
Yes, we are going to follow the schedule for the school that your child attends.
Okay, thank you. And then the very last question, will pre-K students ride the same buses as the rest of elementary students?
At this time, no. They have traditionally been separated. Bus monitor is on the bus with the pre-K students, but not on the regular elementary school buses. So they are expected to remain separated.
Okay. Thank you, team. for answering the questions and for presenting these updates. Again, please access the Operation Reopen section of the website. We will be putting all of our updates in there. We will be providing an FAQ document answering these questions that we answered today, and many more. So please continue to access our website. All right, Dr. Spindler, go ahead.
There was just a couple questions under facilities that I'd like to respond to if possible.
Go ahead.
They asked questions about how often will the bathrooms be cleaned, and just want the community to know that we have reviewed the CDC and Department of Health guidelines in regards to cleaning, and we have created assurances and checklists for our custodial staff to follow, and the bathroom would be considered, because they have here that they thought it would be cleaned once a day. It's considered a high frequency used area. So those will be cleaned multiple times a day, including the door handles, the faucets, the fixtures, places in which have high touch will be cleaned more frequently. So another question that was asked is, what is the plan on Wednesday? Will it be a deep cleaning day? So we have we have secured ecostatic and Clorox fog machines so that each school building will have their own, and we also have secured all of the chemicals and have enough of the chemicals to supply for the entire school year. And these fogging machines will be utilized on twice a week, and then as needed if there is a case that comes up into school. So that will be done twice a week, which would be considered a deep cleaning. So there is routine cleaning, then we have cleaning checklist, and then we have disinfectant checklist. We have gotten all of the COVID-related disinfected supplies to be able to use in the school buildings. And those are EPA registered antiviral products as described in the state DOH guideline, and we will be using them according to the labels and instructions. And then teachers, upon request, will have spray bottles of disinfectant in their classroom, obviously out of reach of children. And another question was, are window air conditioners and fans being utilized or not allowed? Window air conditioners will be allowed. We don't have fans. However, if a teacher has a fan of his or her own, they are allowed to use it. And in regards to the HVAC systems and the MERV 13 filters was a question as well. And I want to address that quickly. So ventilation, custodians will continue to comply with the instructions on ventilation in opening of windows in schools when appropriate and safe. We actually are part of our energy performance contract. We were able to have all of our unifens surveyed, serviced, and refurbished if necessary. MERV 13 filters, which is the highest filter before the HEPA filters that are utilized in hospitals, is what we are going to use. The CDC has recommended MERV 11 in schools. We have increased it to use the MERV 13. And the difference in the filter is that the MERV 13 has the ability to collect more particles. They will be inspected every 30 days and changed every 60 days, superseding the 90-day recommendation. So I believe I was able to get through. The other question is, what is the average amount of students that will be allowed in the classroom? And so each classroom, each building has floor plans, and each classroom is probably about 750 square feet. So on average, we're going to have approximately 12 to 15 individuals in each of the classroom. And again, that will vary. Each of the rooms will have room capacity limits and clearly displayed in each of the buildings. And lastly, in regards to the MERV 13, how do we know that they've been in place? Next to each of the units, we will be keeping a log initialed of when that filter was changed and who was it inspected by. Okay, thank you, Dr. P, for allowing me to answer those community questions.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Dr.
All
P,
right.
there are just two more quick questions that keep coming up. I'm sorry, I know we're way over time.
Okay.
But regarding supplies and materials for students, schools have started to populate those lists on their web pages and send home information. I just want to reassure the community that those are suggested supplies and materials. We do understand everyone will be able to get all of those. So those are suggested, and there are suggested ones for virtual and in school. And regarding open houses and back to school nights and meeting teachers, at this time, those will be scheduled virtually, and you'll be receiving more information regarding those. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We hope that you are well and continue to practice the safety protocols of being socially distant and wearing a mask when you're out in public. Please continue to check the website for updates and continue to reach out when you have concerns and questions. Be well, everyone. Thank you.